The arrival. The day the stars went out, humanity knew everything had changed. It wasn't a gradual dimming or a celestial phenomenon. One moment, the night sky twinkled with countless pinpricks of light, and the next, it was an inky void. In their place loomed massive shapes, their edges limned by the faintest glow of reflected sunlight. The Korathi had arrived. Panic erupted across the globe as the alien vessels took position above major cities. News channels scrambled to report on the unprecedented event, their anchors' voices trembling as they relayed information from increasingly frantic government sources. Social media exploded with theories, prayers, and final goodbyes. In the halls of power, world leaders gathered in emergency sessions. The United Nations Security Council convened within hours, faces grim as they assessed humanity's options. General Evelyn Santos, head of Earth's newly formed United Defense Force, delivered her report with clinical precision. "Our most advanced weapons are ineffective against their shields," she stated, her holographic image flickering slightly. "Conventional missiles, rail guns, even our prototype energy weapons, all have been neutralized. We're effectively defenseless." The Chinese representative leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What of our nuclear deterrent?" Santos shook her head. "We launched a covert strike with Russian cooperation. The warheads never made it past low Earth orbit. They have complete control of our orbital space." A heavy silence fell over the assembly. Humanity's mightiest weapons, rendered useless in the face of alien technology. Centuries of scientific progress and military might brushed aside like a child's toys. It was the UN Secretary-General who finally broke the silence. "Then we must attempt communication. If we cannot fight, we must negotiate." For 3 days, Earth's best linguists and scientists worked tirelessly to establish contact. Radio signals, light patterns, mathematical sequences, every conceivable method of communication was attempted. The Korathi ships remained silent, looming over a world holding its collective breath. On the 4th day, they spoke. Every screen on the planet flickered to life simultaneously. Phones, computers, billboards, and televisions all displayed the same image. A towering figure, vaguely humanoid but unmistakably alien. Its skin was a shifting tapestry of iridescent scales, and its eyes glowed with an inner fire that seemed to burn right through the camera. "People of Earth," the alien's voice resonated, a sound that bypassed the ears and resonated directly in the mind of every human. "I am High Commander Zixkar of the Korathi Empire. Your world now stands at the precipice of a great transition." Zixkar's mandibles clicked, a sound that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. "We have observed your kind for many cycles. Your potential is intriguing. Yet you squander it with your petty conflicts and short-sighted ambitions. The Korathi Empire brings order to chaos, purpose to aimlessness. We offer you the opportunity to join us, to become part of something greater than yourselves." The alien's eyes narrowed, the glow intensifying. "But such an honor must be earned. We do not accept the weak or unworthy into our ranks. Thus, we extend to you our sacred right, the challenge of ascension." Murmurs of confusion rippled across the globe. In the UN chamber, diplomats exchanged worried glances. "Your world will select a single champion," Zixkar continued. "This warrior will face me in honorable combat. Should your champion emerge victorious, Earth will be granted independence and a place of respect among the stars. Should they fall," the alien's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth, "your world and all its resources will belong to the Empire. You have 7 planetary rotations to present your champion. Choose wisely, humans. The fate of your species hangs in the balance." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving billions of stunned faces staring at blank screens. In the UN chamber, chaos erupted. Accusations flew as representatives argued over the validity of the challenge, the impossibility of victory, the madness of even considering such a proposal. It was the American ambassador who finally cut through the noise. "Enough," her voice rang out. silencing the chamber. We can argue about the fairness of this all day, but it won't change our situation. Like it or not, this is the hand we've been dealt. Now we need to figure out how to play it. General Santos nodded grimly. I agree. We need to approach this methodically. First, we need to understand the nature of this honorable combat. Is it a test of technology, physical strength, mental acuity? The Russian ambassador leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps we are thinking about this the wrong way. This six-car speaks of honor, of sacred rights. It reminds me of ancient traditions, of a time when the fate of nations could be decided by single combat between champions. A murmur of realization rippled through the chamber. The Chinese representative's eyes widened. You're suggesting a duel. It fits, Santos mused. The emphasis on individual combat, the talk of honor and worthiness. We might be dealing with a culture that values martial prowess above all else. The Secretary General nodded slowly. If that's the case, we need to start looking for our champion immediately. Someone with exceptional combat skills, preferably in hand-to-hand or melee fighting. I'll begin compiling a list of candidates, Santos said. Special Forces operators, martial arts champions, Olympic athletes. Anyone who might stand a chance in this kind of confrontation. As the meeting adjourned, a sense of grim determination settled over the assembly. They had a monumental task ahead of them. To find, in 7 short days, a single individual capable of standing against an alien warlord in combat. The fate of humanity would rest on the shoulders of this chosen champion. Little did they know, the person they sought was not to be found in any military database or sports record. Earth's best hope lived a life of quiet seclusion, far from the centers of power and the eyes of the world. In a remote mountain village in Japan, an old man tended his garden, unaware that he would soon be called upon to face the greatest challenge of his long and eventful life. The search for Earth's champion had begun, and time was already running out. The search. As the world grappled with the reality of the Korathi challenge, a frantic search for humanity's champion began. Military bases buzzed with activity as Special Forces operators were put through grueling tests. Sports arenas became impromptu training grounds where athletes pushed themselves to new limits. Even underground fighting rings were scored for hidden talents. But as the days ticked by, a growing sense of desperation settled over the global effort. None of the candidates seemed up to the impossible task of facing an alien warlord in combat. It was on the 4th day that Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a historian specializing in ancient Japanese martial arts, approached the selection committee with an unconventional suggestion. You're looking in the wrong places, she said, her voice quiet but firm, as she addressed the assembled world leaders and military brass. The warrior you seek won't be found in your databases or competition records. General Santos leaned forward, her patience wearing thin. Then where? Dr. Tanaka. We're running out of time and options. Yuki took a deep breath. There's a legend in certain martial arts circles, a man who mastered the way of the samurai to a degree thought impossible in the modern age. My grandfather used to tell me stories about him. Hiroshi Tanaka, no relation to me. He was said to be the last true samurai, a master of both the physical techniques and the spiritual disciplines of Bushido. The room fell silent, all eyes on the young historian. And you believe this? Legend could be our champion. The American ambassador's tone was skeptical. Yuki nodded. If he exists, and if he's still alive, he might be our best hope. The stories say he retired to the mountains of Hokkaido decades ago, living as a hermit and continuing to hone his skills in seclusion. The Secretary General exchanged glances with General Santos. It's a long shot, he mused, but at this point, we can't afford to leave any stone unturned. Dr. Tanaka, can you lead a team to find this man? Within hours, Yuki found herself on a military helicopter, accompanied by a small team of Special Forces operators and diplomats. As they flew over the rugged landscape of Hokkaido, she couldn't help but wonder if she was leading them on a wild goose chase. What if the stories were just that? Stories. The team spent 2 days searching remote villages and questioning locals, following whispered rumors and half-remembered tales. It was on the evening of the second day, as hope began to fade, that they found him. The old man was tending a small garden outside a modest wooden house, his back to the approaching team. Despite the chill in the air, he wore only a simple yukata, his movements graceful and purposeful as he pruned a bonsai tree. "Hiroshi Tanaka," Yuki called out, her voice hesitant. The old man straightened slowly, turning to face them. His face was a map of wrinkles, his hair a shock of white. But his eyes were sharp and clear, filled with a vitality that belied his apparent age. "I have not heard that name in many years," he said, his voice surprisingly strong. "What brings you to my mountain, young one?" Over cups of green tea, Yuki and her team explained the situation. The alien arrival, the challenge, the desperate search for a champion. Hiroshi listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When they finished, he set down his cup with deliberate care. "So, the world that once had no place for the way of the warrior now comes begging for its help. How ironic." "Master Tanaka," one of the diplomats leaned forward, his voice urgent. "We understand this is a lot to ask, but you may be humanity's only hope. Will you come with us? Will you be Earth's champion?" Hiroshi's gaze swept over the assembled group, lingering on Yuki. "Tell me, young historian, do you believe I can defeat this alien warlord?" Yuki met his eyes steadily. "Honestly, I don't know. But I believe in the stories I've heard about you. I believe that if anyone has a chance, it's you." A long moment of silence followed. Then, to everyone's surprise, Hiroshi chuckled. "Well spoken, child. Very well. I will go with you, but not to be your champion. Not yet. First, I must see this alien for myself. I must understand what we face." The return journey was a blur of activity. News of Hiroshi's discovery spread quickly, and by the time they reached Tokyo, a media frenzy awaited them. The old samurai, however, seemed unperturbed by the attention, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around him. In a secure facility, Hiroshi was shown footage of Zixkar's transmission. He watched in silence, his eyes narrowed in concentration. When the video ended, he turned to General Santos. "Show me how your warriors have fared against this challenge," he said. For the next hour, Hiroshi observed as Earth's best fighters attempted to prepare for the coming duel. He watched them spar, studied their techniques, noted their strengths and weaknesses. All the while, his expression remained impassive. Finally, he spoke. "Your warriors are strong, but they lack something essential. They fight with their bodies, with their weapons, but not with their spirits. Against this Zixkar, such an approach will lead only to defeat." "Then you'll do it?" General Santos asked. "You'll be our champion." Hiroshi closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening to some inner voice. When he opened them again, there was a fire there that made him seem decades younger. "Yes," he said simply, "I will face this alien warlord. But know this, I do not fight for your governments or your armies. I fight for the people of Earth, for the countless innocent lives hanging in the balance. And I will do so in the true way of the samurai." A ripple of relief passed through the assembled officials. They had their champion. But as Yuki watched the old man begin his preparations, she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. They were pinning the hopes of an entire planet on the shoulders of one man. A man who, legend or not, was still human. As Hiroshi Tanaka, the last samurai, prepared to face humanity's greatest challenge, the world held its breath. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of Earth. But the question remained, could the ancient way of the samurai stand against the might of an advanced alien civilization? The answer would soon be revealed, and the consequences would echo across the stars. Preparation and revelation. The world watched with bated breath as Hiroshi Tanaka began his preparations. The old samurai had been given access to a secluded training facility, equipped with everything he might need. But to everyone's surprise, He requested only the simplest of accommodations, a sparse room, a meditation garden, and a dojo with a single wooden dummy. While military advisors and combat specialists clamored to offer their expertise, Hiroshi politely but firmly refused their help. The way of the samurai is not something that can be learned in a few days, he explained. What I need now is focus, not distraction. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, having formed a bond with the old warrior, was one of the few allowed to observe his preparations. She watched in awe as Hiroshi moved through katas so fluid they seemed more like a dance than combat techniques. His sword, a katana that he claimed had been in his family for generations, became an extension of his body, its blade singing through the air. But it wasn't just physical training. Hiroshi spent hours in meditation, his mind delving into depths of concentration that Yuki could only imagine. When she asked him about it, his answer was cryptic. To defeat this alien, I must understand not just his body, but his spirit, Hiroshi said. The true battle will be fought not with swords, but with will. As the days passed, tension mounted. The Korathi ships remained in orbit, a constant reminder of the stakes at hand. World leaders debated contingency plans, even as they publicly expressed confidence in their champion. On the eve of the sixth day, an unexpected development occurred. The alien commander, Zixkar, requested a preliminary meeting with Earth's chosen warrior. The world's governments were thrown into a frenzy of discussion, but Hiroshi's response was immediate and simple. I will meet him. The meeting was arranged in a neutral location, a specially constructed platform suspended beneath one of the Korathi ships. As Hiroshi prepared to depart, Yuki approached him, concern etched on her face. Are you sure about this? She asked. It could be a trap. Hiroshi smiled, the expression softening his weathered features. A samurai does not fear traps, young one. He turns them into opportunities. The world watched through countless screens as Hiroshi, clad in traditional samurai armor and carrying his katana, stepped onto the platform. Moments later, a beam of light from the ship above coalesced into the imposing form of Zixkar. The alien warlord towered over Hiroshi, his iridescent scales shifting in patterns that seemed to defy physics. In his hand, he held a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a bolt of lightning, crackling with barely contained energy. So, Zixkar's voice boomed, this is Earth's champion. I must admit, I expected more. Hiroshi met the alien's gaze steadily. Appearances can be deceiving, Zixkar of the Korathi. As can expectations. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Indeed. Tell me, human, why did you accept this challenge? Surely you must know the odds you face. I fight not for odds, but for principles, Hiroshi replied. For the way of Bushido, a concept I suspect might be familiar to you, in some form. Zixkar's eyes narrowed. You speak of honor, of a warrior's code. Yes, the Korathi understand such things. It is why we offer the challenge of ascension, rather than simply taking what we want. And yet, Hiroshi said, his voice carrying a hint of steel, you threaten an entire world over the outcome of a single combat. Where is the honor in that? For a moment, Zixkar seemed taken aback. Then he laughed, a sound like grinding boulders. You have spirit, old one. It will make your defeat all the more satisfying. As the two warriors faced each other, the differences between them couldn't have been more stark. Zixkar, with his imposing physique and advanced technology, embodied the might of a spacefaring empire. Hiroshi, elderly and armed with what seemed like primitive weapons, represented a dying tradition from a single planet. And yet there was something in the old samurai's bearing, a quiet confidence that gave even the alien warlord pause. I look forward to our battle, human, Zixkar said. May it be worthy of remembrance. Hiroshi bowed slightly. Indeed. But remember this, Zixkar of the Korathi. A true warrior fights not just with his body, but with his mind and his spirit. The outcome of our duel may surprise us both. As the meeting concluded and Hiroshi returned to Earth, the global mood shifted. The sight of their champion standing unbowed before the alien threat had kindled a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. Back in his quarters, Hiroshi sat in meditation, reflecting on the encounter. He had learned much from those few minutes with Zixcar, about the aliens' fighting style, about the Korathi concept of honor, and about the subtle weaknesses that lay beneath the warlord's confident exterior. Yuki found him there, his eyes closed but his posture alert. "What do you think?" she asked hesitantly. "Do we have a chance?" Hiroshi opened his eyes, and Yuki was struck by the intensity of his gaze. "Young one, in my long life, I have learned that there is always a chance. The key is to recognize it when it appears." He stood, moving to where his armor and sword lay prepared. "Tomorrow, I will face Zixcar in combat. But the true battle has already begun. It is a battle of wills, of philosophies. The Korathi believe in domination through strength. We must show them a different kind of strength." As night fell over a world holding its collective breath, Hiroshi Tanaka, the last samurai, prepared for the greatest test of his life. In his hands rested not just his own fate, but the fate of every man, woman, and child on Earth. The stage was set, the players were ready, and as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, humanity steeled itself for a duel that would echo through the ages. The day of reckoning had arrived. The duel dawn broke over a silent world. Cities that never slept now stood still, their streets empty as billions huddled around screens, waiting. In homes, offices, and public squares across the globe, humanity held its collective breath. Today, their fate would be decided. The chosen battlefield was a massive arena, constructed overnight by Korathi technology in the heart of Tokyo. Its walls were transparent, allowing the world to witness the contest that would determine Earth's future. At its center stood two figures, as different as night and day. Zixcar, the alien warlord, towered over his human opponent. His iridescent scales shimmered with barely contained energy, and in his hand he held his crackling energy blade. The weapon hummed with power, casting an eerie glow over the arena. Opposite him stood Hiroshi Tanaka, the last samurai. Clad in traditional armor, his weathered face calm beneath his kabuto helmet, he seemed almost fragile next to the alien colossus. Yet there was a stillness about him, a centered energy that radiated quiet strength. From a viewing platform, Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched with a mix of hope and dread. "Good luck, Hiroshi-san," she whispered. A disembodied voice, translating simultaneously for both combatants and the watching world, announced the start of the duel. "The challenge of ascension begins now. May honor guide your blades and fate favor the worthy." For a moment, neither warrior moved. Then, with a roar that shook the arena, Zixcar charged. His energy blade carved a path of searing light through the air as he bore down on Hiroshi with frightening speed. But the old samurai was no longer there. With a grace that belied his years, Hiroshi sidestepped the attack, his movement so fluid it seemed almost leisurely. Zixcar's blade met empty air, and the alien's momentum carried him past his target. A gasp went up from the watching billions. First blood had not been drawn, but first advantage certainly went to the human. Zixcar whirled, his eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and grudging respect. "Impressive, old one, but agility alone will not save you." Hiroshi did not reply. His focus was absolute, his breathing steady. He held his katana in a low guard, the blade gleaming in the artificial light of the arena. The alien warlord pressed his attack, his energy blade weaving complex patterns in the air. Each strike carried enough force to shatter steel, each thrust trailing ionized particles that crackled and hissed. But somehow, Hiroshi was always just out of reach. He moved like water, flowing around Zixcar's attacks with an economy of motion that was beautiful to behold. As the duel progressed, a pattern emerged. Zixcar, for all his strength and advanced technology, was the aggressor. He attacked relentlessly, his blade a blur of lethal energy. Hiroshi, in contrast, seemed to fight defensively, never striking directly at his opponent. In the viewing area, military analysts frowned. "He needs to attack," one general muttered. "He can't win by just dodging." But Yuki, watching intently, began to see something the others missed. With each evasion, each subtle shift of position, Hiroshi was moving Zixcar around the arena. The alien, focused on his offensive, didn't seem to notice that he was being led. Suddenly, Zixcar's foot slipped slightly on the smooth arena floor. It was a tiny mistake, one that under normal circumstances would have meant nothing. But Hiroshi had been waiting for just such a moment. In a move faster than the eye could follow, the old samurai struck. His katana flashed once, twice, 3 times. Zixcar roared in pain and surprise, stumbling back. 3 shallow cuts marred his iridescent scales, leaking a strange, silvery fluid. The arena fell silent. For the first time, the alien warlord had been wounded. Zixcar touched one of the cuts, his expression a mix of disbelief and growing rage. "How?" he snarled. "That primitive weapon shouldn't be able to penetrate my bio-armor." Hiroshi allowed himself a small smile. "The blade is not what cuts, Zixcar. It is the spirit behind it." With a bellow of fury, the alien launched himself at Hiroshi. His attacks became wilder, more frenzied. The energy blade carved chunks out of the arena floor, leaving trails of molten material in its wake. But Hiroshi remained calm. He continued his dance of evasion, but now he added counterattacks. Each one precisely timed, each one finding gaps in Zixcar's defenses. None were killing blows, but they accumulated. Silver ichor flowed from a dozen wounds. As the duel wore on, the difference in the 2 combatants' stamina became apparent. Zixcar's movements, once blindingly fast, began to slow. His breathing became labored, his attacks less coordinated. Hiroshi, incredibly, seemed as fresh as when the duel began. His movements remained fluid, his focus unwavering. It was as if he drew energy from some hidden wellspring, his spirit unflagging even as his body should have tired. In homes and gathering places around the world, people began to dare to hope. The impossible was happening before their eyes. David was standing against Goliath, and Goliath was faltering. Finally, Zixcar overextended himself on a powerful but clumsy swing. Hiroshi ducked under the energy blade, and in a move of breathtaking beauty and precision, disarmed the alien warlord. The crackling weapon clattered to the arena floor, its energy dissipating harmlessly. Zixcar fell to his knees, his mighty form heaving with exertion. He looked up at Hiroshi, who stood before him, katana poised for a killing stroke. "Finish it," the alien growled. "You have won. Claim your victory." But Hiroshi did not strike. Instead, to the surprise of everyone watching, he sheathed his sword and bowed to his fallen opponent. "The battle is won," Hiroshi said, his voice carrying clearly in the hushed arena. "But I do not claim victory over you, Zixcar of the Korathi. Instead, I offer you a choice." Confusion replaced anger in the alien's eyes. "A choice? What do you mean, human?" Hiroshi's voice was calm, but it carried an undeniable authority. "You came here seeking to test our worth, to see if we deserved a place among the stars. I put the same question to you now. Are the Korathi worthy of joining us in peaceful coexistence? Can you look beyond conquest and see the strength in diversity, in cooperation?" The arena held its breath. The fate of 2 civilizations hung on Zixcar's response. For a long moment, the alien warlord was silent. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. "Never in all my cycles," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "have I encountered a warrior like you. Hiroshi Tanaka of Earth, you have bested me not just in combat, but in spirit. The Korathi have much to learn from your people." As Zixcar struggled to his feet, Hiroshi extended a hand to help him. The image of human and alien standing together, supporting each other, was broadcast across the earth, and unknown to humanity, to countless worlds throughout the Korathi Empire. It was a moment that would change the course of galactic history. In the viewing area, Yuki felt tears streaming down her face. Humanity had not just survived. It had triumphed in a way no one could have imagined. Through the wisdom and skill of one old samurai, Earth had gained not just its freedom, but a new ally among the stars. As celebrations erupted across the globe, Hiroshi Tanaka, the last samurai, stood quietly in the center of the arena. His task was complete. He had fought not just for victory, but for understanding. And in doing so, he had opened a new chapter in human history. The day Earth faced its greatest challenge had become the day it took its first true steps into a larger universe. Aftermath and reflection. The days following the historic duel were a whirlwind of activity and emotion. As news of Earth's triumph spread, celebrations erupted across the globe. Streets filled with jubilant crowds, strangers embraced, and for the first time since the Korathi arrival, the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. But amidst the joy and relief, there was also a profound sense of change. Humanity had been thrust onto the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible, and the implications were staggering. In the halls of power, leaders scrambled to adapt to this new reality. The United Nations convened an emergency session to discuss the path forward. How would Earth engage with the Korathi? What would this mean for global politics and economics? The debates were heated and complex, but underlying it all was a sense of cautious optimism. Meanwhile, Zixcar and a delegation of Korathi diplomats had taken up residence in a hastily prepared facility outside Tokyo. The alien warlord, humbled by his defeat and impressed by Hiroshi's wisdom, had become an unexpected advocate for peaceful relations between their civilizations. Dr. Yuki Tanaka found herself at the center of these historic events, serving as a liaison between the Korathi delegation and Earth's governments. Her understanding of both Hiroshi's philosophy and the academic background of Earth's cultures made her uniquely suited for the role. One evening, as she was reviewing translation protocols for upcoming negotiations, she received an unexpected visitor. Hiroshi Tanaka, the hero of Earth, stood in the doorway of her office. "Hiroshi-san," she said, bowing deeply. "I didn't expect to see you here. I thought you'd return to your mountain." The old samurai smiled, the expression softening his weathered features. "Not yet, young one. There is still work to be done." As they walked through the facility's garden, designed to accommodate both human and Korathi aesthetics, Hiroshi shared his thoughts on the recent events. "The duel was not the end, Yuki-chan," he said, using the affectionate honorific that reflected their growing friendship. "It was merely the beginning. The real challenge lies ahead, building understanding between our peoples." Yuki nodded thoughtfully. "It's incredible how much has changed in such a short time. A week ago, we were facing extinction. Now, we're discussing cultural exchange programs and joint scientific ventures with the Korathi." Hiroshi's eyes twinkled. The way of the warrior is not just about combat. It's about facing challenges with courage and wisdom. Humanity has shown its warrior spirit, not just in facing the Korathi threat, but in embracing this new future. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Zixcar. The alien warlord had adapted his form to a slightly smaller size to better interact with humans, though he still towered over both Yuki and Hiroshi. "Ah, the hero of Earth," Zixcar said, his voice a mix of respect and lingering amazement. "I hoped I might find you here. There is much I wish to discuss." As the three of them, human historian, Earth's champion, and alien warlord, sat down to talk, Yuki couldn't help but marvel at the strange turns life could take. Over the next few hours, they discussed the future. Zixcar spoke of the changes already rippling through Korathi society. The broadcast of the duel had sparked intense debate among his people, challenging long-held beliefs about strength and conquest. "Your way of the samurai," Zixcar said to Hiroshi. "It intrigues many of my kind. The idea that true strength lies not in domination, but in self-mastery and wisdom. It is a revolutionary concept for us. Hiroshi nodded sagely. Every civilization reaches a point where it must choose between the path of force and the path of harmony. The Korathi stand at that crossroads now. As night fell and their discussion wound down, a sense of profound change hung in the air. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities in equal measure. But there was also hope born from the understanding that even the most different of beings could find common ground. In the months and years that followed, that hope blossomed into reality. The Korathi, inspired by Earth's example, began to shift away from their conquering ways. They became mediators in galactic disputes, using their strength to maintain peace rather than wage war. Earth, for its part, took its place among the stars. The technology shared by the Korathi accelerated human development by centuries. Soon, human ships were exploring the cosmos, carrying with them the lessons learned from their first extraterrestrial encounter. Hiroshi Tanaka, the last samurai who became humanity's greatest champion, respectfully declined all offers of power or position. Instead, he returned to his mountain home, where he established a school dedicated to teaching the principles that had saved Earth. Students from across the planet, and eventually from across the galaxy, came to learn the way of the warrior as a path to peace. Dr. Yuki Tanaka continued her work as a bridge between cultures, eventually becoming Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her experiences with Hiroshi and Sixkar had taught her the value of understanding and respect in diplomacy, lessons she carried with her as humanity took its first steps into a wider universe. And Sixkar, the former warlord, became one of the staunchest advocates for peaceful coexistence in the galaxy. He often visited Earth, particularly Hiroshi's school, seeking to deepen his understanding of the philosophy that had so dramatically changed his worldview. As Earth celebrated the 10th anniversary of the historic duel, Yuki stood on a stage before a global audience, preparing to give a commemorative speech. She looked out at the sea of faces, human and alien alike, and felt a surge of pride and hope. 10 years ago, she began, we stood on the brink of annihilation. Today, we stand at the dawn of a new era of galactic cooperation. We faced our greatest challenge not with weapons of mass destruction, but with courage, wisdom, and an unwavering belief in the potential for understanding between all sentient beings. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the audience. The lesson we learned, the lesson we must carry forward, is this. True strength lies not in the ability to conquer, but in the wisdom to connect. In the spirit of the samurai who saved us all, let us move forward not with fear of the unknown, but with the courage to forge new bonds across the stars. As applause thundered through the auditorium and across the planet, Yuki caught sight of a familiar figure standing quietly at the back of the hall. Hiroshi Tanaka, the last samurai and humanity's greatest champion, gave her a small nod of approval before slipping away unnoticed. The old warrior's task was complete. He had not only saved Earth, but had set both humanity and the Korathi on a new path. A path of peace, understanding, and endless possibility. As he stepped out into the bustling streets of a world forever changed, Hiroshi allowed himself a small smile. The way of the samurai had found new life among the stars, and the greatest adventure was just beginning. The end.